Hello everyone, it's me, Clayton, and I just got out of seeing Atomic Blonde. Now, if you love films like John Wick and Wonder Woman, you'll definitely love this film, as it's a very stylish, very action-packed film that makes the most out of its characters, and it makes the most out of some excellent actors, such as Charlize Theron and James McAvoy. But let's get to the story, shall we? The story takes place in 1989 and is based off of a graphic novel series called The Coldest City. The story is about a young woman named Lorraine Broughton, who is an MI6 agent who is sent to Berlin, Germany in order to collect a certain dossier list that contains the names of several agents, and that could affect the entire political landscape of Berlin, as well as it could continue the Cold War, for a few more years. So her mission is to retrieve that list while also working with a man named David Percival, played by James McAvoy. Now, this film, advertising had a lot of people thinking that this is going to be a John Wick, but with Charlize Theron, since it mainly focused on the action scenes throughout. And while the action scenes are certainly there, and they're just as good as you'd expect them to be, and one scene it's even better, the film is a lot more of a spy intrigues movie, more like one with more drama and intrigue, with just little bursts of action here and there. It's not like John Wick, where the action scenes are like 10 minutes long. But the longest one I think is like 7 minutes. But when the movie gets to the action scenes, they're very well choreographed, they're very hard hitting, and every single bullet shot and every single punch thrown feels like it really hits. I know that might not be the best description, but that's the best one I can come up with, considering it just feels like it's really happening. One scene in particular in a stairwell is probably going to be used by several film schools later on as to how to make an effective action scene, as it just feels so well handled. Another thing that's well handled is the battle damage. Here's what I mean. Charlize Theron takes a lot of hits throughout this film, and unlike most movies where the hero just ends up looking fine without a scratch on them later on, in every scene she looks like she has blood pouring down her lips, she looks bloody and bruised. Heck, at the beginning of the film you see she has a black eye and a couple of bruises on her face, and you're wondering, oh, how'd she get those? It's actually pretty effective, since, especially with women in these movies, you don't usually see them have those wounds for very long. Yet she has wounds for a good portion of the film. Speaking of, it's just very well done. Now the characters, they're not exactly the most compelling characters, but they get the job done. Look, Lorraine Broughton is a very typical MI6 agent, sort of like James Bond if he was played by Charlize Theron. She's very calculating, she's very confident in herself, but she's also got her emotional limits, and she's able to kick butt in the action scenes, but she's also not superhuman. And Charlize Theron plays her very, very well. David Percival, played by James McAvoy, is also enjoyable, as he's often very humorous when it comes to his dialogue, but also you can tell that James McAvoy is putting his all into his performance. There's another character played by Sofia Boutella, who's very intriguing, and honestly I wish she had more screen time, but talking about her in some cases would veer into spoiler territory. So all I'll say is that I love Sofia Boutella in this movie, and I hope she gets more great roles going forward. And Toby Jones and John Goodman do the best with their roles, even if they're just the typical mission control roles. Now the soundtrack for the movie is very well handled as well. It's mainly a bunch of 1980s hits, and even though you might think they're a bit out of place in certain scenes, they do add to the atmosphere and the style of this film, considering it's shot like a graphic novel. There's a lot of cool close-ups, there's a lot of shots that look like they come straight out of the Coldest City graphic novel, even though I've never read the graphic novels. I'm sure most of them are kind of shot for shot the same, based on how the movie is shot. And it just looks very stylized and very interesting. There aren't any flat camera angles. Almost every single one looks like it was handled in a way to make something look cool, or to make something pop out to the audience. There's such as spray paint showing different locations, blood splattering on the camera lens, that sort of stuff. So Atomic Blonde isn't the best action film of its kind to come out this year. I do think it's like 10 minutes too long, and its story just isn't as interesting as as John Wick. But for an action film starring Charlize Theron, and if you just want to see her kick some ass and take names, it's a pretty fun time. So I'll give Atomic Blonde an 8 out of 10. See you next time.